Listen, if you're someone of Caribbean or African descent, you should be looking at a second passport. If there's any way possible, check through your lineage, check everything you can. But seeing what's happening in the news today, seeing the direction of travel in which things seem to be going in the 20s and the likelihood that it's going to continue into the 30s, you really need to make sure that you have as many options as possible for where it comes to where you happen to reside. Now, I don't know if you're new to YouTube. I don't know if you're new to my channel. If you are, it's a pleasure to meet you. But the reality is that there are folks out here who are pushing the advantages of having Caribbean citizenships, of making sure that your nationality portfolio is as wide and as vast as it can be, primarily for tax purposes. And the reality is that there are thousands of people across the world who are making the most of Caribbean passports. Meanwhile, there goes you sitting somewhere, probably quite cold, working exceptionally hard. And what do you have to show for it? Possibility is you have quite a lot, and your life is a lot better than it would have been if you stayed where you are. And if that is the case for you, congratulations. And yet still, it is good to have options. There are millionaires who are creating options for themselves. There are billionaires who are creating options for themselves. And you, who by birthright have the option to be a citizen of a second country, have you made use of it? If not, why not? Do it, please. Trust me. If you can do it for virtually free instead of paying $250,000, a million, 5 million, the figures that are being asked for these passports are absolutely wild. And yet the fact that they give people access to our countries, in some ways it's a steal. But given the way in which the lay of the land is in the US, in the UK, in France, in Germany, in pretty much everywhere where things are heading towards the right, where situations for people of color are barely even tolerable, I'm not telling you that you need to change location, but at least give yourselves the option. If you're an adult, I imagine that you were alive during the time of COVID. And I imagine that you saw the way in which the ability to travel was severely limited by governments based on your nationality. If you have more than one nationality, your options are much more vast. And if we saw that that was the case in COVID, imagine the situation in which, if you are in Europe, and if the headlines are to be believed, that World War III is a distinct possibility and the draft will be coming up and our children will be sent into the army, wouldn't it be ideal to have another option other than making your child be cannon fodder? Now that's extreme, possibly. Maybe it might not happen. But even if your child wanted somewhere else to attend university, per se, or the option to start a business somewhere else, or to just live somewhere else, or just to be able to go on holidays somewhere else for an extended period beyond the 3 to 6 months that might be possible for a tourist visa. If you can do that for a few £100 or a few hundred US dollars, why not? Please let me know in the comments, why not? And in this case, I will actually engage because I am very curious as to why so many of us have this amazing birthright that people literally have to pay millions for and we are not making the most of. And again, I'm not telling you that you should move to the Caribbean, or if you happen to be of African descent, that you should return to Africa. Like, that is not for me to say. I can't even say that if you do choose to do so, that your return will be easy, that a red carpet will be rolled out for you, and everyone will be happy that you've returned. That definitely has not been my experience in Grenada, and reality is there is no reason why it should be. Grenada has been doing just fine. It will continue to do fine. Yes, there has been a brain drain, but accommodating to different cultures that you haven't been born in or that you may have been absent from for a long time is a challenge. And it is a skill, and it does require a certain degree of humility and willingness to learn that many of us who return do not have. And we bring a degree of colonized thinking with us, which is problematic, no matter what hue your skin. But despite all of that, we need options. I don't know how many more times I can say it, but we really do. And I think those of you in the US right now who are seeing what is happening, who are seeing the absolute madness, like, what are you going to do? You don't have to stay where you are. This is no longer the plantation. This is no longer, you are no longer chained and shackled to where you are. Yes, your parents or grandparents may have left the Caribbean to go to the States for the sake of a better life, but are you really having a better life? Are you really having a better life? But you have options, and you should make sure that those options are available to you. And you know why? Because you have that privilege that so many of your ancestors did not have. And there's so much that you could do with that in places where your efforts will be valued and appreciated, not necessarily by everyone, but it will make an impact in places that matter, not places that are essentially going down the drain. And if we're honest, British Empire's ended a long time ago. The US Empire is on its way out. And I don't really care what anyone has to say in the comments. If you don't see that, then cool, do you? But for those of us who have other places where we could be, who have other places where we can make a difference, recognize that. Recognize that. Yes, your job title might mean a lot to you. Yes, you might drive a nice car. Yes, you might have saved up for a nice house and have a mortgage. But is that really it? Is that the reason why you were put on the planet? I don't know the answer, but it's something worth thinking about because all the lights are on. The check engine light is on in terms of the quality of life in the US, in the UK, in France, in Germany, and elsewhere. And chances are it's not coming off anytime soon. If anything else, more red alarms are going to be going off. If they don't, brilliant. But if they do, what are you going to do? Because history tells us that there are certain patterns and certain people end up being on the brunt of those patterns. And it's happening now. And I'm not scaremongering. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to remind you that you have options and you should explore those for yourself, for your children, for your family, for your friends. You should explore them. And there are certain islands, of which Grenada is not one, that are encouraging this, that are aware of this. Jamaica has an amazing diaspora engagement program. Barbados too, because they understand the power of being able to re-engage their networks of folks, being able to engage people who care about the country that they happen to have origins of, who care about the land that they've inherited and has been sitting empty for the past 20, 30, 40, 50 years. There are resources that they are able to tap into by engaging the diaspora, and they are actually taking steps forward to make that possible. That's not the case in every island. Some islands are very progressive when it comes to their citizenship, making it available to people whose parents were born on the island, also making it available to people whose grandparents were born on the island. That is not the case in every destination, but I urge you, explore your options. Because the sooner you start doing it, and Lord knows in the Caribbean, things do not move fast. The sooner you start exploring your options, the greater runway you have to be able to find solutions. And it's worth looking into. As someone who's had Grenadian citizenship for the past 5 years, the sense of freedom that gives me is priceless. And I'm even considering getting my third passport, which might be from Benin. African citizenships are a whole nother avenue to explore. But it's really time. It's really time. And I haven't said anything on YouTube for a long time because I haven't really known what to talk about. And I don't believe in talking for the sake of talking, but this matters. Waking up every day to realize that we're now in a situation where I, as a former journalist, cannot even bear to look at the news before midday because it is just so horrific. I feel for you guys. I feel for you. I feel the way in which when I come across you in the street and we talk about you wanting to move back, that there's an urgency there. I feel for you, for those of you, and this is the majority of people that I interact with who are African American, who don't know where they're from, and who don't have those options and are yet still very urgently seeking to be elsewhere because they know that they need options. And it's great that you're seeking them out. It's great that you're finding safe spaces online where you can connect, where you can share resources, where you can co-create new forms of existence. More power to you. But this is specifically for those who have options for citizenship, who are not doing anything with it. It's time. Even if you keep it in a safe, it's an option and you should explore it. And if you don't happen to be particularly enthralled with the island that you are from, there is always the route of CSME or for OECS citizenships, that's Eastern Caribbean states. There is the option to be able to live and work on other islands. So please don't give me that it's not right for me back home. There are other options as well. So that's it. That's my rant for 2025. It's not the nice way to welcome myself back to YouTube, but listen, it's 2025. It's time to be real. It's time to get real. Look at those options. If you're not sure where to turn, feel free to drop me a line and we can see how we can help you. But it's not difficult. If you don't have time, I have services that can be of use to you, but start looking. Start making sure that you know what your options are because you don't want to leave it until it's too late. Hopefully it never will be, but joining the dots, there's a distinct possibility that it might be, and you will be able to fulfill your purpose elsewhere. I promise you. Okay?